I'm Quentin DeBerry, and I'm here to talk about ethical consumerism and investment, particularly around social responsible investing, and what that means and what that looks like. And as an investor myself, what is my role and how do I move forward when it comes to choosing financial stocks that would both be a financial gain for my portfolio as well as a social gain for the environment or the local community in which I live and utilize from a daily perspective. In terms of SRI, what does SRI really mean? I think that's one of those difficult um, phrases or those difficult items that we've kind of new phenomenon of social responsible investing and our role in it. And so for me, I think it's an investment. Overall, it's an investment strategy that considers both a monetary and financial gain as an investor and a social good, and I call it more like social equity or social financial capital. And so there are three ways that you and I can participate in social responsible investing, and that's investing in companies that you and I believe that hold values that are important to us. For example, you could take Ben and Jerry's, the ice cream company that does a lot of investment in local neighborhoods as well as social causes that impact not only the local community in which it operates in, but on a global scale as well. Last summer, I think that, or Ben and Jerry's invested money for the Black Lives Matter campaign, and what they thought were injustice to just everyday Americans or everyday people. As a shareholder, and that so people who were passionate about that cause, that's something to rally behind as a Ben and Jerry's investor. So that's one way, investing in companies that you're passionate about. Next is the shareholder advocacy group, and these are people who represent the shareholders or it represents um, the common person. So their role is to influence corporate decision makers. We can consider those like lobbyists in a sense. And so some things they can do as social advocates or shareholder advocates is to educate their shareholder, educate them on the company's initiatives for the 10-year plan or what they're doing for the next 90 days as an organization to get back in line with some corporate values. Dialogue, I think dialogue is one of those things that we all struggle as regular relationships, but in an enterprise level, it's imperative that you keep the lines of communication both open and transparent about what the company is doing financially and socially as an investor of that group. And then media attention, regardless of the media attention, it can have a negative impact or it can have a positive impact. And so you look at Wells Fargo and the Dakota Access Pipeline and what impact that drew to their company, as well as the account scandal and how it played a part from a social responsible standpoint. Warren Buffett, one of their top stockholders, pulled back his plan of buying a significant portion of stock due to the DAP and the account scandal. So that had an impact. And then last is community investing, and it's one of the fastest growing ways to corporate or social responsible investing at 61 billion. Is using capital in unserving communities with using low interest rate loans. For example, there's an organization here in Charlotte called Lowell Street where they build houses in next to predominantly or affluent homes so that the neighborhood can reap some of the benefits, social benefits of being next to a property that has significant property value. That organization also provides a school and a bookstore for that community so that the kids or the local community can have resources from a social impact. So on one hand, you have investors who are making pretty good money from a financial standpoint, but on the backside, from a social standpoint, they're providing relatively cheap housing and resources for underserved community from a long time. So there are many ways, I think, when you look at social responsible investors, you have to look at the stakeholder interests from all the way from the supply chain to your customers, to your team members, to the local community in which it stands in, what that company is doing in that community, and what role it plays. For example, Chick-fil-A does a lot of community service within the community of a certain mile radius of their stores. You have an environment. What does that organization do to impact the environment, to reduce the impact to the environment? For example, you have Tom's Shoes, who every time someone buys a pair of shoes, they donate a pair of shoes to a homeless person. That's helping save the environment. Those shoes could possibly, extra shoes could possibly land up in a landfill, or you have playgrounds that are taking old resources and turning them to soft playgrounds. So that's also a potential option from an environment standpoint of those companies that do that. And then governance is the executive board, the stock private board that governs the organization, the leadership of that company, executive pay, and then governance is about shareholder rights. So those would be some things that I look at as far as my criteria when it comes to looking at organizations that I would be behind is how do they take care of their stakeholder interests, and not just me as a financial stakeholder, but the third party stakeholders, what that organization is doing for the environment. Is it saving, is it protecting, is it adding value, or is it just depleting some of the natural resources? And then three, that governing body of checks and balances. If the CEO steps out of line, what are the options that we have as a stakeholder? And if a stakeholder, financial stakeholder, steps out of line, what are the repercussions or what are the implications of that as well? I think there are plenty of organizations there are tons of organizations that do a great job in corporate or social responsible investing in terms of getting a financial return and a social return on your investment. So Xylem is a water company or a solutions water company where they provide pipes and tools to clean water, make sure that we're getting fresh water, or the investors are getting fresh water to wherever they're investing in. So it's about water for them, while also offering a financial return on your investment. So to invest in Xylem, you're looking at anywhere from a 52-week low of $26.98 to a high of $40, which gives you a pretty good margin of what that organization is doing, both from a financial standpoint and about conserving water and making water more drinkable and safer. I think that's an excellent organization that you can get behind from a social responsible investing company as an option. So about a 7.7 return or 17% return on your investment with a market cap of over $6.8 billion. So the company is driving revenue in the right direction while also solving some of our most critical problems around or issues around water. And then you have Praxair, which is a natural gas or industrial gas company. They do liquid oxygen, nitrogen, things of that sort. And so they're looking at a 52-week of over $117 to $135 a share, which again is a great margins if you're looking at strictly financial versus the impact, and as well as the impact of what they're doing environmentally. And then you have $39.1 billion from a market cap standpoint. And then last, one of my favorites is Whole Foods because of what they do from a strictly revenue-driven organization as a grocery store chain, organic grocery store chain of natural products, and over $16 billion in sales. So if you look at what Whole Foods does in terms of social, it starts from the beginning of the process of growing your food locally, and how is that food transported to your local grocery store, your local Whole Foods. In terms of kind of wrapping up, when you're looking at ethical consumption and ethical investing, I think you have to look at what Hunt and Vital said around marketing ethics. I think it starts there. What images or what stories are we painting as an investor as to make this organization more attractive? I want to see them highlight some of the social impacts that the companies make, and that way you are more prone to get investors who want to jump on board. And then ethical consumption. Auger and Devaney talked about that moral conviction once they get to the cash register. Will they make the right decision? I think ethical consumption is, do I really need this item that I'm about to purchase? For example, when you go car shopping, do you really need the Ford 150 that's going to eat a lot of gas, or could you do the smaller car that's more convenient and environment friendly? So it's about a balance of being ethical consumption of not being too greedy, and then when in terms of ethical investment, does my investment return back what I need as an investor from financial and what is given or taken from the environment? And so, thank you, Quentin DeBerry.